Hello, students. We're ready for Unit 8, Lecture 3, the development of European feudalism. First, let's do a quick little recap. So here's the world. I'm going to zoom in so we can get just Europe. Nope, that's too close. Okay, let's go here. All right, so we know there was the Roman Empire that circled all along the edge of the Mediterranean Sea here. Then it was a whole bunch of stuff happened. It was split in two. Then the East thrived. The East was doing amazing, awesome, everything's great. But the West completely collapsed. End, done. No more Western Roman Empire. Over many years, this guy Clovis the First, who was a Frankish king, conquered a whole bunch of land and made his own fairly good-sized kingdom. But his government was horrible and his empire collapsed. Then hundreds of years later, we had Charlemagne that built up an amazing empire. He was so impressive that Pope Leo I crowned Charlemagne emperor. Charlemagne died. His son Louis I was a good emperor. Louis I died, and his sons were horrible. They biggered and fought, and they were terrible, and they couldn't decide who was going to lead. So the empire had to be broken up into three parts, and now the old west side of the Roman Empire has fallen into disrepair again, and it's just a whole bunch of small warring territories. Well, when you're a bunch of small warring territories, you look vulnerable. It looks like you're easy to conquer. And that it was not good. So I'm going to draw a line here. This is kind of what we're talking about, the Western Roman Empire. Let me try that again. Do it a little bit better. And I can't find where my, oh, well, okay. So more like here. Okay, so they had all sorts of people attacking them. From the east, they had some people called Magyars. They had the Magyars coming at them from the east. From the east and the south, they had Muslims coming after them. Remember, the Muslims started over here, and they had traveled all through northern Africa and up through Spain, and they started coming over this way. So we've got the east, the south, and from the north, they had Vikings. The Vikings are the people from this region, which is called Scandinavia. Scandinavia is made up of these three countries: Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. So the Vikings especially liked these two islands here. A long time ago, it wasn't called the United Kingdom. This was Scotland up here, and England down here, and Ireland over here. The Vikings liked northern France, and they liked these two islands here. But the Vikings also came over this way and settled. So the Vikings settled some here and some here, and they created trade routes. Trade routes are really cool. People from the West get introduced to products from the East. People from the East get introduced to products from the West. It's really cool. So the big thing to remember right now is that Western Europe is being attacked from all over the place. People are just coming after them all the time. Well, when your people are being attacked all the time, it's very difficult for one king to protect his entire land. So this system called feudalism began, and the king, let's say, I'm making the king's land. All of this is the king's land, and if one king is in control of all of this land, but you're being attacked all the time, he can't protect his people. So what the king did was he broke up his land into large sections, and he told someone called a lord, this is your part, this is your part, this is your part, and this is your part. You're in charge. This lord was in charge of this land. This lord was in charge of this land. This lord was in charge of this land. And this lord was in charge of this land. In exchange for the land, the lord pledged his loyalty to the king. Anything the king needed, all he had to do was ask the Lord, and the Lord would do it. You need money, the Lord gives you money. You need soldiers to defend because somebody's attacking you, the Lord gives you soldiers, whatever. Then the lords broke their land up into even smaller pieces. Maybe I should, let's say I'll put them in around different colors. So the Lord, I'll make the lords green. Okay, so a lord is in charge of this big section. Don't forget, the king is in charge of everything. And then the lords broke up their land into even smaller pieces and gave them to vassals. Vassal, 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 and vassal. In exchange for this land, the vassal pledged his loyalty to the Lord. Anything the Lord needs. If the Lord needs money, the vassal gives him money. If the Lord needs soldiers, the vassal gives him soldiers. If the lord needs food, the vassal gives him food, whatever. Then this piece of land here, this is called a fief. F-I-E-F. This is a fief, this is a fief, this is a fief, 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 fief. The land that a lord gives a vassal is called a fief. And there were some fairly small fiefs, maybe only the size of our school campus. And then there were some huge fiefs, the size of the entire neighborhood. It just depended on who the lord was and who the vassal was and who got what size of fief. Some fiefs included entire villages. There might be a whole village on a fief, and the vassal is in charge of that fief. And the people, just the random, everyday people that lived on a fief, these people were called serfs. And the serfs were not allowed to leave the land. They were not necessarily slaves. The vassal did not own the serf. It was more like the land owned the serf. The serf is not allowed to leave without leave the property at all without talking to the vassal. The serf, if let's say this lord dies, the serf still has to stay here, not allowed to leave. If this lord sells all this land to this lord, the serf is still there. The serfs come kind of like just property of the land. Now, once again, the king promised to protect the lord promised to protect the vassal, and the vassal promised to protect the fief. The lords would build themselves huge castles, a great big castle with big walls around it. And if warring tribes came, if somebody came to attack them, all the serfs and all the vassals and everyone went and hid inside the lord's castle. And he raised up the gate, just like you've probably seen in movies. They all went running into the lord's castle, and the lord protected them. So the king promised to protect the lord promised to protect the vassal promised to protect the serfs. But the serfs had to do all the work on the land. And then when a lord asked a vassal for money, the vassal got the money from the serfs. The vassal took money from the serfs. The vassal took food from the serfs. The vassal took whatever the vassal wanted from the serfs, kept some for himself, gave the rest to the lord, and then the lord had to give some of that to the king. So everybody was paying everybody, except the serf was just the bottom. Nobody was paying the serf anything. And let's see what else I've got. Aha! Okay, once again, gotta remember, that's how the feudal system worked. Let me write that for you. This is the feudal system. The feudal system. The king gave land to lords. The lords gave land to vassals. And then underneath the vassals were serfs. All the serfs did was work. That's all they did. And let's say a serf farmed this much land all the time. This much of it is what he got to keep for his family. And the rest of it is what he had to hand over to the vassal. And then the vassal would keep this much of it for himself and so the vassal keeps this much for himself and turns all the rest of it over to the king. All the rest of it over to the lord. And then the lord keeps this much of it for himself and has to give all the rest of it to the king. And remember, the king has all those lords underneath him. So the king is getting this much from all the lords. The lord is getting this much from all the vassals. No, this much. This much from all the vassals. And the vassal is getting this from the serf. So the serf gives to the vassal gives to the lord gives to the king. Every time the vassal keeps a little, gives the rest to the lord keeps a little, gives the rest to the king. And the king has all these lords that work for him. And the lords have all these vassals that work for them. And the serfs are the ones that are doing all the actual work. And at this time, because there was constant war, it never, ever, ever stopped. There was always war. There was always need for warriors. There was always a need for people to fight. And there was this special kind of warrior, like a special kind of soldier called a knight. And knights fought on horses. About the age of 7, usually knights were a lord's son. So at about the age of 7, a lord would decide, okay, I think this son is going to be a knight. And he would be trained to fight. Like at the age of 7, he goes off, and the only thing he learns to do for the rest of his life is sit on a horse and fight. And knights had a specific kind of code that they lived by, and it was called chivalry. Knights were expected to be chivalrous, and chivalry is brave, loyal, generous, and to fight fairly. Like to be fair when they're fighting. That's what it means. That's what chivalry is. Brave, loyal, generous, to be an honest fighter. Like don't fight dirty. And just a little bit more. The heart of the medieval economy was the manor. The manor. The manor was the agricultural estate of the lord. So let's see. If you remember properly, so the king is over everything, everything. And the king breaks up his land, gives his land to a lord. Oops. Lord, lord, lord. And then the lord breaks up his land amongst vassals. Vassal, oops, vassal. I'm just going to put V to save time. Okay, so, and then the serfs work under the vassals. This entire area, all of this that is run by one lord is called a manor. This is a manor. And this is another manor. And this is another manor. Oops, I didn't go all the way down. This is another manor. And manors were big, like big. There could be a village here and a village here and a village here and a village here and a village here. There might be a village here and a village here. Like they were big. So everything that's involved in a village or several villages, anything that was on this entire area that a lord ran was called a manor. And it also included like everything, the forest, the fields, the everything, anything that was involved in this territory was the manor. And all the manors put together under one king was considered the economy of that kingdom. This is a kingdom. One king is in control of all of this land. Each lord has his own castle, and the lord has vassals that work under him. And also make sure I've just made it like this, but one lord could have a whole bunch of vassals. Like what if he broke this up like this? And one lord has, let's do this. This one lord has 3, 6, 10 vassals working for him. It wasn't always like it. Who knows? One lord might have one vassal under him. One lord might have 27 vassals under him, whatever. But all the land that one lord controls is a manor. And all the manors put together make one kingdom. And the one guy that's in charge is the king. The king promises to protect the lord promises to protect the vassal promises to protect the serf. The serf has to pay the vassal just for the privilege to live on the land. The vassal keeps some of it and gives the rest to the lord. The lord keeps some of that and gives the rest to the king. That's feudalism, European feudalism. The majority of the population were serfs. These are peasants. They had nothing. These people really had nothing. They lived in huts and they just grew enough food. Well, they grew a lot of food, but they had to give it all to their vassal. They were only allowed to keep enough food just to stay alive. Almost the entire population were serfs. There were only a few vassals. There were even less lords, and one kingdom had one king. And in the beginning of this system, in the beginning of feudalism, the lord's wife was in charge of the manor. But pretty quickly, they decided, no, that's a man's job. So they gave the job to a man. And that man, so yeah, became a man's job. There were two important jobs during this time that you should know about. Two, like, public officials. How about you spell that word correctly, Mrs. Gibbons? There were two officials. There was the bailiff. I don't have enough space. There was the bailiff. The bailiff was the accountant. So he kept track of all the money for the lord. He was the tax collector. This guy went around to the vassals and the serfs and took their taxes. And when the lord was away, he worked as judge. At this time, during the feudal system, the lord of the manor was the judge. If somebody had a problem with somebody else, they went to the lord. But if the lord was away, they went to the bailiff. And then there was the reeve. The bailiff and the reeve. The reeve was in charge of repairing buildings and managing the peasants, making sure they were doing their work. We're finished. That is your basic 12-year-old explanation of feudalism in medieval times. I hope you enjoyed it.